Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 90, recording on Friday, June 13th. The guest for you today is ESPN's Kevin Seifert. Stood out next to him for an extended period of time this week at minicamp. We talked about what we saw, JJ McCarthy, Josh Metellus' contract. A lot of good conversation, so thank you guys. We'll really enjoy this. Kevin's been doing it for a long time. Have the utmost respect for the way he goes about it, the work he puts in, the job he does. So very fun to get to talk to him. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Would really appreciate it. And then if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you listen to your podcast, you can rate, review, and do all that good stuff. It helps us out. This show is presented by First Resource Bank. It's a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area, run by some really good people who care about this community. They've built a really good online banking platform. The branches are sleek and easy to operate within. Tim Siegley runs the thing, Aaron Siegley, Charlie Anderson, really good people, Vikings fans. So any information you need on First Resource Bank is in the description below. At The Athletic, where I do my day job covering this team, have a full report from what we saw at minicamp that ran Friday morning. There was a JJ story with some Ryan Kelly insight on Thursday, and then Wednesday did a story on Dallas Turner, with some perspective from his longtime trainer, Javon Gopi. So if you've got time this weekend, the weather's bad, if you're not out on a patio, if you're not out on the golf course, you could just scroll that Athletic app. There's a lot going on, some hockey stuff from Michael Russo, some basketball from John Krasinski, baseball from Dan Hayes and Aaron Gleeman. That's kind of what we do over at The Athletic. Not going to waste a ton more of your time. We'll be back next week with kind of a Q&A, let you guys ask some questions, give some feel as we are about to enter the most quiet period of the calendar, which is necessary in a lot of respects for both the players, the coaches, and even the nerds like me. So without further ado, here is the conversation from Friday morning with ESPN's Kevin Seifert. All right, Kevin, thanks for hopping on the show on this beautiful day. Glad to have you. I know I'm sure you got a lot better things to do, but how are things? How was minicamp?
It was great. It went by fast. It felt like we just started 3 days. Oh, wait, it was 3 days. That's right. No, it was good. The spring went fast. It's rare that you have as clear of a storyline in the OTAs and minicamp as we had. And it not be a rookie. A lot of times that's the thing we're all talking about. But in this case, it was JJ McCarthy and the rest of the quarterbacks, and certainly gave me a focus. And next thing we know here, we're going to be out on summer vacation.
Yeah, it's funny. Someone said yesterday out there as I was in a hoodie getting soaked because for some reason the weather's been back and forth. Someone was like, it's just so different when you almost forget that they drafted a first round pick in Donovan Jackson. And there was no real trench work to evaluate, but it's just it was almost as if his presence was a side aspect, and I guess it was. I've talked and written about this probably exhaustingly, but how hard and how hard it was for me to glean anything really substantial and meaningful. How hard was that for you?
Hard, and I think maybe I make it too hard on myself. I like to say, every year I cover the NFL, I know less, because every year you stumble onto something that makes you question your conviction on things that you were convicted on in the past, and it could be all different sorts of things. In the case of quarterbacks, it was probably 5-6 years ago when Drew Brees said that he used to go into these OTAs and basically, if you didn't know what you were watching, you would think he was terrible and had lost it because he was experimenting with different ball placements and trying to figure out if a guy who couldn't catch it this way had developed enough that he could throw it that way this year, and all different kinds of things that he would never do in a game or even in a competitive 11-on-11 full pads training camp drill, that this was the time to do it. And so it makes me question, if I see JJ McCarthy leave a ball short on a deep pass to Jordan Addison, and Jordan did come back and catch it for a touchdown, but was it just a underthrown pass, and do I need to worry about his arm strength, or was he trying a different type of throw? You know, there's all these different levels of throws and trajectories that quarterbacks use for different routes, and it's not the same for every quarterback. They have to figure out the best way to do it for them and their receivers. And so was that going on as well? Probably some of that. So long story short, like, I really fought against myself in, like, seeing, sometimes your eyes just tell you what you need to see. And sometimes the things you find out along the way make you question it. So I did, come away with some takeaways, but not as many as people probably want me to have.
Yeah, it was interesting because, you mentioned like the deep ball, but there was the one day where he threw like this out route pattern, maybe from the opposite hash, and it got intercepted by Isaiah Rodgers.
Yeah.
And you're like, is that a throw where he's trying to, place it in tight, kind of directly? Is that a throw where he should add more trajectory? And you can, I've said this, but like, unless you talk in real detail to people after the fact, it's really, really difficult to know whether he was experimenting. And you asked him yesterday, and he spoke on Thursday, like, how often are you like trying, testing, experimenting? And he said every day, which even in my mind, it even further clouds like the overall evaluation that I tried to have over the last few weeks.
And there's also times when, like, a coach, and Kevin O'Connell has kind of implied that he's done this pretty regularly over the years, like, call a play that's probably not going to work against what or create a practice script that calls a play against a defensive scheme that isn't congruent. Like the defensive scheme is gonna win, and just to see what happens. What does he do? And I don't think it happens in Minnesota, but there's times when a coach will tell a DB, "Hey, here comes this play," and so he can naturally just jump it, and the quarterback is like, "How did that happen?" And which is kind of reflective of what happens in games sometimes. It's like, you're positive that this guy is going to be the right read, and you throw it that way just robotically, and you get intercepted, and you can't figure out why. So, that's all a convenient excuse, I guess, for not coming away with any like real assessment after standing there for 2 hours a day for 3 days, and then the other OTAs as well. But I like to think that I'm being respectful of context.
Yeah, no, exactly, that's exactly right. But there were, there were the most meaningful opportunities were like these 7-on-7s where the receivers are definitely like running closer to full speed. But even those, again, you fall back in context, like there's no pass rush. So how do you really make something of it? You mentioned Kevin O'Connell, and I one of the interesting aspects to these last few days specifically for me was it just sounds like they threw a lot at him. JJ said yesterday, like, I wish you guys got to see a call sheet, which I appreciate him saying that. Not sure that would, I don't know how.
Oh, I'm sure that'll be delivered right away. Yes.
Yeah. I expect to get one soon via email. And even if I did, I'm sure I would understand the full breadth of what I was looking at. But what stood out to you just from the standpoint of how it seemed like they were trying to kind of, spur growth through this period?
Yeah, like I think in a couple ways, they gave him a lot of different, there weren't too many of what looked like the same plays going on. So it looked like, what do we know from that? But like, it looked like there was just a lot of different, even if there was occasionally the same play, it would be with different personnel. And that's not dissimilar from the way that things will go in the games. But I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me is, and I think this goes back to what I've thought from the entire offseason. Like, to me, like, if JJ McCarthy was the 1A of the offseason storylines, Justin Jefferson being at camp was 1B. And I know that O'Connell talked a lot about him as an energy guy, and like it helps the whole building. But clearly this was, and as Justin said, not so much for him, but very much to get him on the same page with JJ McCarthy. So if you say, like, what were they trying to do to spur growth? It was getting him on the field with not only one of the best receivers in football, but maybe one of the more unique ones when you kind of look underneath the hood in terms of the way he operates. And Justin talked about this in terms of, like, his stride length and like when he comes out of breaks and like transitions from one thing to another, and like that's a real thing, and like that's the kind of thing that a quarterback can only learn by seeing it on the field. And like if you normally throw a certain route this way, it's going to be different with Justin. And so like the idea of him just showing up at the end of July and them getting a couple weeks together and thinking that he would that would be enough for JJ to get used to him and to get used to just what it's like to throw to NFL receivers, period. Like, and it wasn't just by chance. It wasn't like Justin was bored and decided to, I'll just go to OTAs, catch some Timberwolves games, host a camp, and then that'll be my spring. I don't have anything else to do. I'm not going to go to Paris this year. I'm not going to do all the other things he's done in the past. I mean, they really wanted him there. Like, and O'Connell has been more open about it than I thought he would be, because there is that sort of understanding with the union and the CBA that like these are voluntary things, and like there's a long history of coaches putting either explicit or implicit pressure on players to be there, and you're not supposed to do that because this is voluntary and that's a violation, and you can, if it's like really a significantly pressurized situation, like that can lead to sanctions, and that is not at all what happened here. But like he did go to, make it very clear that he went to Justin and said, like, we really need you here, man. And Justin responded and said, it's no problem. It's good that I'm here. But like, that to me, like that was where the good stuff was happening this spring, is like those two guys on the field together every single time. Like, I don't think JJ had thrown to him at all last year when you think about it, because when Justin was there, he was working with Sam Darnold and the first team, and because we were counting snaps, we know that JJ only had 2, but at first team snaps last year. But that's where the good stuff happened, and that's where the growth was. Like, to me, like watching from the outside, I'm sure the coaches could point to a lot of other things as well, but was the top reason. The top way that they went about it, to me, to bring him along, was to make sure that Justin was there with him.
Yeah, you wrote about it, and I thought it was astute. It also, JJ got to the podium yesterday, and he said, we've only got like 30 practices left until the first game. And in my mind,
wow.
I was thinking, holy cow, this is just incredible. This process goes way faster than I wish it should for my own mental energy standpoint. But second, if you only have 30 practices with a guy who does, to your point, run routes at a different pace, at a different to a different beat, that would be challenging. The other, I don't know, I think you were standing there, but Justin stood in for Kevin O'Connell's press conference, and then after Justin took the podium, Kevin O'Connell was like, Justin, what was it like to be here for this whole process?
Yeah.
And then at the end, he's like, so do you plan on doing it next year? And Justin was like, we'll talk about this later, which is probably a very good reflection of they got him to do it. It's been very productive, but I'm not sure if will make this the most standard operating procedure. One of the other aspects that was a popular talker on Thursday was JJ's arm strength and particular media members who I am very grateful to get to observe oftentimes had the conversation with him. Just like I've said, it doesn't, compared to the other quarterbacks that we watch out there, like it definitely feels like he has more zip. The question for me has been, and will probably continue to be, the trajectories and like the way they describe it as more pitches in the arsenal as a pitcher, more clubs in the bag as a golfer. Yeah. How have you wrapped your mind around the arm strength, layering, trajectory conversation that for some reason is probably more relevant because we have to have something to talk about?
Yeah, well, I mean, I had never seen it. I never understood. I was surprised when after the Vikings drafted JJ McCarthy, and I kind of worked backwards a little bit and was, reading some of the media analysis and watching some of the media analysis pre-draft, and it wasn't everybody, but there was definitely some people who were like, when I watch him at Michigan on film, it looks like he's using all of his strength and putting all of his body into every throw, and you shouldn't have to do that, and you can't do that at the NFL. And doesn't matter if he threw 61 miles an hour at the combine, like velocity isn't everything. And I do agree with the velocity thing. Like that's not the end all be all on anything. And if you look at who the top guys have been in previous years, it's not exactly a who's who of like Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And so like that in itself doesn't necessarily correlate to much. But from the moment really he got to his rookie minicamp as a rookie, like there was enough there to not feel like there's any huge issues. Justin Jefferson talked last summer about how the one thing he said about him compared to Darnold is that Sam Darnold had learned to vary up his speeds, and that JJ's thrown as hard as he can every time. And it's still the receiver's responsibility to catch it, but like there's a certain way you can it's just like, as you said, like pitchers or golf, different golf clubs that you have in your bag. There should be a variety, and that's to optimize each throw. And so I do think that he has a lot to learn in terms of how to throw at an NFL level, but I don't think that there's any like physical liability there. I don't think there's like any thing that can't be solved through technique and the fundamentals of what's the best way to throw each particular route. And people think that like it's like a static thing, like arm strength is just something you were born with, and it's whatever you have, and like it can't be changed one way or the other. And so even if he was on the weaker side, which I don't think he is, like there's ways to in the same way in baseball where an adult pitcher adds 5 miles an hour to his fastball, like, and it's not because he got stronger per se, it's because he learned better ways to throw it. And so I am not worried about it. I don't think like that's on the list of 10 things that people should be worried about with JJ McCarthy, if there are 10 things to be worried about. But I don't think it's like meaningless. I think there's some relevance in terms of the way he the speeds he throws at, and the way he throws certain routes. And that may not even be something that he masters, and he probably doesn't. And that's the big thing about him in terms of expectations is if people are going to judge what type of quarterback he is based on the first week or the first month of the season, and not understand that like he's probably going to be better, in his second season as a starter than his first, and probably his third season than he was at his second. Like that's all part of the development. I mean, a big reason why Sam Darnold was good last year, in addition to the surroundings that he had, was that he was ready to be good. He had done all the work that it takes to be good up until that point, and that it's just going to take some time with JJ, but I do not have any concerns from my amateur eye of his arm.
No, but I mean, you just got to like a fascinating kind of back and forth that Matthew Collar, who we work with, we had the other day, and he was talking about expectations and like, I mean, they're spending this much on the roster. They've had 3 years, this regime, and not won a playoff game. And we had this very fascinating back and forth of like, essentially, I was like, I mean, if we get through week 2, week 3, and Kevin O'Connell is saying, there's periods of growth and periods of development, like I'm going to totally understand that. And then there's also probably this like other end of the expectation of, but you're spending $357 million, you have a veteran roster, you haven't won a playoff game, so how much time do we have for that? How do you think about like that, the middle ground of what is sensible, probably from an expectation perspective? Because it's tough for me. I just speaking honestly.
Yeah, like I would be shocked if he's terrible, and shocked if he's a top 5 or even a top 10 quarterback. And that leaves that like the by far the most likely range is that he's going to be good. Like some level of a little above average, at average, maybe a little below average, certainly good enough to be a winning team. And so like, and that's like, I've talked to Dan Barrero, my friend and, former colleague and current KFAN host, about this too. And like his feeling is that basically because of the team they've built and because of, Kevin O'Connell's success and this team's success with quarterbacks, there's this expectation that JJ is just going to hit the ground running. And, I have no reason to think he's going to be a 4,000-yard, 35, 30 touchdown guy. And like, that's okay. Like, and that's like, that would be an absurd projection to make, and maybe it would have been absurd for Sam Darnold, but a little bit less absurd because he had a lot more experience. And so, and so then you get into the idea of like, is it good enough that a quarterback of a team at this payroll and this window has a quarterback that isn't, the range of him being a Super Bowl winning quarterback the likelihood of that is small in this year, and so it's imperfect. And like, there are so few times when, I can say this definitively as a longtime Vikings observer, there are so few times in the NFL when all the stars align. That's, to me, success in the NFL is when is finding a way through the unaligned stars. You can't, there's never going to be a time when everything's perfect where you've got this great roster, everyone's going to be healthy, and the quarterback is just ready to become something. There's always going to be something that, at a rookie deal. Like, there's always going to be something that's like, I don't want to make it a cliche and say some adversity you have to overcome, but there's just no such thing as an all-stars aligned franchise or team even in a given small window of a season. There's always going to be something that's imperfect and something that you have to overcome, and something that that at the beginning of the season makes you chip away at the likelihood that they'll win a Super Bowl. But somebody does it every year, and I don't think last year the Eagles had every star aligned. I don't think in previous year the Patriots, during their run, didn't have every star aligned. They found ways, and that's the secret sauce of the NFL, is who finds the ways. And they have enough to do it, whether or not JJ McCarthy's ready to be a 4,000-yard, 35 touchdown guy.
No, I think that's I was just going back in my very young memory bank of even Patrick Mahomes when he first started. I mean, there's still there might have been optimism, but you didn't know. And then even as he's gotten older, and you're we know what he is, then there's still uncertainty with the receiving core or with aspects of the defense and young players. And then it goes and then you go around the Bills, even as optimistic as you can be about Josh Allen, they have had offensive coordinator questions. They've had offensive line adjustments. So it's that's an interesting probably way to think of it. But where I've landed is similar, where to expect 3,800 yards and 30 touchdowns and 11 picks, it's just I just can't get myself to think that's a fair benchmark, and I almost feel I'm not setting the standard high enough, but it's just what is realistic, and that's kind of the balance in my head. A couple other things that are not JJ related, because I don't know, the listeners and viewers probably want that for 40 minutes. But the Josh Metellus thing is kind of interesting to me. I mean, he's a guy who has obviously played an incredibly interesting role for Brian Flores. I went back last year. Brian Flores said to me for a story, there's not a more valuable player on our defense than Josh Metellus. I thought that is interesting.
Bet that's been used in contract negotiations.
It seems relevant, probably. But I wasn't making a big deal at all of him not participating fully in some of the 7-on-7 work, 11-on-11. I'm still, as we sit here, we'll see how things look in training camp, how active he is. But how have you? Where is your mind as you think about his contract situation, final year of a deal of his contract with void years coming? Positionally, he's interesting. Where is your mind with all of that?
Well, a couple of things. One, and this is kind of, a little parallel to that, but, Cam Bynum left to go to Indianapolis, and so there's a starting job open, and we all kind of at least I kind of just assumed that, okay, they signed Theo Jackson to a multi-year contract, and he slides into that, and Josh Metellus keeps playing 90% of snaps, at every different position and doing what he's very uniquely suited to do. But like maybe that was the wrong assumption. Like I got the sense from Josh that and I think he kind of said this sort of explicitly, that like he wants to be a safety. Like he envisions himself as a safety. That's his position. That's where he was drafted at. And he was playing this role, because that's what he was asked to do. And, it adds to his value, and he still could do that. And in watching, when they did have the, he was participating in the 11 on 11s, which was at half speed, but it gave you an idea of like what they were thinking, at least right now, personnel wise. And he was kind of in that safety spot a lot, not every time, but a lot alongside Harrison Smith. And then there wasn't necessarily the Josh Metellus role. Like that kind of opened it up for, maybe Theo Jackson might do that some in what we saw, or maybe even Jay Ward, or maybe that extra position gives you a chance to get Dallas Turner on the field more. So it just kind of, long story short, it opened my mind a little bit in terms of like, well, we shouldn't just assume that they're, especially with Brian Flores and the way he kind of thinks about things, that like we shouldn't just assume that that's just what is going to continue to happen is what has always happened just because it always has happened. And so that's one thing. The second thing is like with, they haven't, in terms of the contract, like it's clearly complicated, or they would have come up with it, because they want him to stay. He wants to be here. There's not like there's any concern with it, but like I don't know. Like the Vikings have put up a lot of money. They don't. There's ways to always to add cap space when you need to, but like most teams' cash budgets are finite. Like you can't just keep spending Ziggy Wilson money, and they know that, and they're not. I don't think that they're like looking to break the bank on this at all. But like it was interesting that Josh mentioned when he talked to some reporters after practice that Cam Bynum got $15 million a year, like, and so then you can have a separate discussion. Cam Bynum, is he a $15 million, like whatever, like that was because he got onto the free agent market, and he found out what your value is, what a team is willing to offer, and the Colts were willing to offer that, and so that was his value, and so like if Josh really wants that, then that might it might have to wait until then to find out if there's a team willing to do that. In the meantime, play safety and show and demonstrate to the league that you can do it. And so it's really interesting. It's not an easy answer. I don't blame him for where he's at right now in his thought process. And there's always possible they could figure it out before or at least give him a raise of some kind, for this year before he would, in theory, test himself out on the free agent market. But they did sign Theo Jackson to a lot cheaper contract that lasts for 3 more years after this, and so that's lurking in the background as well.
It is interesting. Like I'm just like try to envision his shoes, where he watches Cam Bynum and the team negotiate before the season. Cam's representatives, who are different, they can't come to terms. Then Cam plays the year out, and then Cam hits the open market and generates 4 years, $60 million. And if you're Josh Metellus, there's probably, like, if you watch your peers operate in that path, it's probably like, I wonder if I could take a similar path and net like the eventual, money. But the question, it gets back to positionally, like, is it the same situation? Is the market going to be the same at that time? Are there going to be enough teams seeking safeties like there were last year with Cam Bynum? Like, it is just kind of an interesting dynamic. But I maintain that, like, in training camp, it's going to be interesting to see, like, is he participating fully? If he's not, he's obviously an integral piece to what they want to do this year, no question. And he's massive in the locker room. I think we see that every day. So it wasn't at the beginning of like the spring, I was like, okay, like what, but as we sit here now, like the more I've thought about it, and specifically like the positional probably arguments of like what is he, what's his value at, because he plays a lot in the box and he is like a slot defender. It's kind of like a interesting test case to me in a way that I don't think I saw at the beginning.
Yeah, and like if he doesn't get a chance to put a lot of good safety traditional safety work on tape, what's the market, even on the free agent market, for a guy his size that can play on the line of scrimmage and can do, like, you'd almost, like, the ideal situation for him, frankly, would be if, like, Brian Flores got a new job as a head coach somewhere, or even and like had the power to say, like, I want Josh Metellus, and like pay him what he wants, and because he would know how to, he would have a plan. There's not many teams that have defensive schemes that will carve that out, and it's just the fact. And so that would be from a market standpoint, that would probably be the ideal thing for Josh. And whether that happens, who knows? But like, it's a tough one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and he is incredibly cerebral, and like, they talk all the time. You hear this every day, just like I do, about like the communication hub on the back end and the checks they make at the line of scrimmage, and I think that entails like a certain level of just like feel on the field that some guys have and some guys don't. And he obviously does. Yeah. What else? I don't know. What else? You have something more on that?
Oh, I would say, like, just thinking long term, like Harrison Smith's not going to play forever, and like it would definitely be notable if they were to lose Harrison Smith and Josh Metellus in the same offseason at that position.
No question. And then not having drafted one this past year, then I mean, you're almost in that position that they obviously didn't want to be in this past year, where it's you're not taking best player available, you're targeting certain position. What else from the last 3 days, the last like couple months, stands out at all of interest to you from what you saw or what you heard, any of that?
Yeah, no, the only other thing that just thinking as you said that, like, we haven't really gotten a chance to see the Vikings offensive line together. I mean, we made a big deal, and it was a big deal, about them going out and basically overhauling the interior of the offensive line. And Ryan Kelly, the new center, was out there all off season, but it turned out that Will Fries, the new right guard, he broke his leg in October and was not ready to do anything. And so we just briefly saw him on the field, just kind of watching, but he was not even at a point where like he could be doing like individuals or anything. And so, I don't think that I'm not concerned about whether he'll be ready for the season, but like, you'd like to see at least some work going on. I mean, you can't be told over and over again how valuable these reps are, and then like blow off when the reps don't happen. And so, and then Donovan Jackson, the first round pick, was that left guard, and if there's going to be a competition between him and Blake Brandel, it couldn't happen because Blake was working on the right side. And so I think we know where that's going to go. But then, and also Christian Darrisaw, was out there very briefly, but not a ton. And I think Kevin O'Connell was pretty cautious about people assuming that because he did come out either just for a little bit, that that means that his timetable is increased. Like, if he follows the T.J. Hawkinson timetable, it's going to be a push for him to be ready for week 1. And so, in theory, like, we could go through the entire offseason and summer without the Vikings' presumed, 5-man offensive line getting any reps together in competitive drills of any kind. And so, that's not like the worst thing in history if they're all ready to go, and you're talking about veteran people, but they are new to each other. And Christian Darrisaw wouldn't have taken any competitive snaps with Donovan Jackson next to him. Brian O'Neill wouldn't have taken any, hasn't taken any snaps at all yet with Will Fries next to him. Again, not a panic situation, but something that jumped out to me. And again, you can't be told over and over again how important continuity and reps are for for offensive line in particular, and then like not note and wonder about the impact when they aren't together.
Yeah, no, I think it is interesting. It's also like, we talked about the run game, importance of the run game. It's like I haven't seen anything related to that and won't until training camp. And that will be like, as I was preparing to talk to you, I was thinking, like, as I look forward to training camp, that's going to be one of those things that maybe I care way too much about and I'm talking too much about, but I just feel like it is integral for them to end up doing what I think everyone listening to this probably wants them to do.
No, and you've been right about it, and you're also taking your cues from what they've said. I mean, I don't think O'Connell or anybody has shied away from and Kwesi Dofo-Mensah as well has shied away from the idea that like they've got to be better there, and they've kind of like I guess you know it's not the first year they've said that, and we haven't
Right.
necessarily seen I did think we saw some impact in terms of like commitment to it last year relative to the previous year, but like there's still a long way to go there, and the numbers were the numbers in terms of, and like it showed up to me like, and I'm sure you talked about this, but in that Detroit game at the end of the year when they were on the goal line and they didn't even try to run, and like I understood why they weren't trying to run because it wasn't likely they were going to get in, and their best plays and players were in the passing game, and so that you don't want that happening with a first year starter as a quarterback, and so and they've been open about it. So I think they've opened the door for plenty of analysis and observations and potential criticism there as well. If we don't see the commitment, because they do have the personnel now,
Yeah.
I think. And so the second part of that is scheme adjustment and play calling adjustment, frankly.
No question. All right. Well, Kevin, thanks for hopping on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I mean, again, with the weather, I'm not sure what else you can do. I mean, this is the Minnesota summer. Supposed to be nice. That's what you guys have been telling me. And here we are.
And people never listen to me, but I always say that my least favorite time of year in Minnesota is May. And so we're sort of still in that area, which is, it hasn't really necessarily been warm for an extended period. A lot of like gross, rainy, cloudy days. And then you just wait for that little sliver in the end of June and into July before work starts up again.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why people are tuning in, the weather conversation for sure.
There you go.
Thanks for hopping on. We'll see you soon out, I don't know, out at the facility. Hopefully not. Maybe need a month to recover. But thanks for hopping on. Appreciate it, Kevin.
Sure thing.
And that'll do it for episode 90 of the Alec Lewis Show. Appreciate you guys being here. Thanks for following along throughout the minicamp week, throughout OTAs. As I said at the top, this is the quiet part of the NFL calendar. And they don't, people always ask, what happens in the offseason? What do you do in the offseason? It's just season. This is how it goes. There's combine, there's draft, there's free agency, there's rookie minicamp, there's regular minicamp, there's OTAs, and it's a blast to get to do it. And I'm grateful for the opportunity. But we'll get some rest and recovery in over this next month. We'll also sprinkle in some podcasts here and there. Looking forward to getting to training camp where we'll be on an everyday grind with what we see forthcoming. And if you missed it, got a bunch of stories at The Athletic, more to come, some bigger picture stuff over this next month or so over at The Athletic. And then check out First Resource Bank. If you don't know about them, it's a phenomenal bank in the Minneapolis community. Got branches all over the place. Really care about the people who have accounts with them. I don't pump banks all the time, but I will pump First Resource because of how much I know they care about this community, certain events within the community. So please go check them out. The link is in the description below. If you made it all this way, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, hit the like button, all that good stuff. Enjoy your weekend, whether you're on the patio, like I said at the top, on the golf course, watching the U.S. Open, which is a gnarly tested Oakmont that I will have my eyes geared up for, whether you are finding an incredible restaurant and dinner out somewhere in this incredible food city. Enjoy it, and we will talk to you guys very, very soon.